The waiting room was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled of bleach and cold metal, and the walls were lined with glossy posters that promised care, hope, and healing. But for Sarah, sitting in the corner with a faded headscarf and trembling hands, those words felt like lies. She clutched a folder against her chest. Medical papers, test results, bills, and her eyes stayed fixed on the receptionist typing behind the desk every few seconds. Sarah opened her mouth to speak but stopped, her courage fading under the sound of the clicking keys when her turn finally came. She stepped forward. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I'm here for my chemotherapy. My appointment was at 10. The receptionist didn't even look up name. "Sarah Haynes," the woman typed, frowned, then sighed. "Your insurance didn't clear without it. You'll have to pay the full amount up front." Sarah blinked. "But I just talked to the insurance office yesterday. They said they were sending over the authorization." The receptionist shrugged. "Then they didn't, I'm sorry. But you'll need to reschedule once payment is verified." Sarah's voice shook. "Please, my doctor said I can't delay another week. The tumor's already—" The woman cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, there's nothing I can do. Please step aside." A few people in the waiting area turned to look, but no one spoke. Sarah's throat closed up. "Please," she whispered. "I just need this treatment. I'll pay, just not today." "Ma'am," the receptionist snapped. "We have other patients waiting." And that was it. The line moved on. The sound of typing resumed. Sarah stood there frozen, tears threatening to fall. Then, as if the world had decided she hadn't suffered enough, her phone buzzed on a text from her son. "Mom, did you start your treatment?" "I told my friends you're getting better." She turned away, stepping outside into the cold wind. Her hands shook as she tried to call the insurance company again, her voice breaking as she pleaded into the phone. But before she could finish, the engine roars cut through the street, deep, rumbling, unmissable. Everyone in the parking lot turned. A group of motorcycles slowed to a stop in front of the clinic. 6 riders in worn leather jackets, their patches shining red and white. The leader took off his helmet, his eyes scanning the scene until they landed on Sarah. Standing there with tears on her cheeks and papers clutched to her chest, he walked up slowly. "Ma'am," he said gently, "you okay?" Sarah tried to speak, but her voice cracked. They said I can't get treatment. My insurance." He looked toward the clinic doors, his jaw tightening. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Sarah." He nodded once. "All right, Miss Sarah. You sit tight. We'll take care of this." The clinic's automatic doors slid open with a hiss as the bikers stepped inside, boots echoing against the polished floor. The receptionist froze mid-keystroke, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The room went silent. Every patient turning to stare. Ryder, the leader, walked to the front desk, calm but commanding. "You're the one who told that woman outside she couldn't get her treatment?" The receptionist stiffened. "Sir, this is a medical facility." "Then start acting like one," he said flatly. She swallowed. "She doesn't have valid insurance coverage." Ryder leaned forward just enough for his voice to drop low. "She's fighting for her life. You really gonna turn her away over paperwork?" The other patients murmured, heads turning toward the front. The nurse at the counter whispered, "She's been here every week. She's kind." The receptionist flushed. "I just follow policy." Ryder straightened, pulling a wad of folded bills from his jacket pocket and slamming them gently but firmly onto the counter. "There's your policy. That's enough to cover her treatment and whatever fees you people keep inventing." Her eyes widened. "Sir, you can't just—" He cut her off. "We just did." Behind him, the rest of the bikers stood in a silent line, their leather jackets marked with the red and white wings of the Hells Angels. The waiting room had gone dead, quiet. Ryder turned toward Sarah, who was still standing outside, watching through the glass with disbelief written all over her face. He motioned her in. "Come on. Ma'am, you've got a fight to win." She hesitated, tears streaking her cheeks. Before slowly walking inside, the nurse smiled faintly and held out her hand. "Let's get you prepped, sweetheart." The receptionist sat frozen, unsure what to do. Ryder leaned closer one last time. "Next time you see someone like her, remember, not everyone's got a gang behind them, but everyone deserves a little humanity." As Sarah disappeared down the hallway with the nurse, the bikers stayed in the lobby. Not loud, not angry, just present. One of them, Tank, looked around the room and said softly, "Crazy, huh? All that money floating around this world, and people still gotta beg to stay alive." An old man waiting nearby whispered, You're doing good work, son, Tank smiled faintly. Not just doing what someone should have done already. The fluorescent hallway lights buzzed faintly as Sarah followed the nurse toward the treatment room. Her heart raced, not from fear of the needles this time, but from disbelief. The same doors that had shut her out minutes ago were now wide open when she sat in the recliner. The nurse whispered gently, "You're lucky, sweetheart. Those men, they don't do this for just anyone." Sarah frowned softly. "You know them?" The nurse smiled. "Everyone around here does. They've paid hospital bills, bought medicine for kids, even replaced a clinic generator once after a storm. People call them outlaws. But we know better." As the nurse adjusted the IV, Sarah's eyes blurred with tears. She hadn't just been helped. She'd been seen. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, the bikers sat quietly, sipping vending machine coffee that tasted like metal. They weren't waiting for thanks. They were waiting to make sure Sarah was safe. Ryder leaned back, staring at the clinic's logo on the wall. Compassion in every care. He shook his head with a small, bitter chuckle. Words are cheap till somebody bleeds for 'em. Tank nodded. "We all lost someone who couldn't afford to wait, remember?" Ryder's gaze dropped to the floor. "Yeah, my sister. Same story, paperwork took too long, cancer didn't." The room fell silent for a moment. When Sarah finally walked back out, her face was pale but peaceful. "They said I can finish the whole treatment cycle now," she whispered, voice trembling. They even apologized." Ryder smiled gently. "Good, now focus on getting better." She shook her head. "I don't even know how to thank you." He smiled faintly. "You don't. Just promise you'll keep fighting. That's all the thanks we need." Sarah nodded, tears streaming freely now. "I will, I swear I will." Ryder turned to leave, but she stopped him. "Wait, why me? You didn't even know me." He paused at the door, glancing back. "Doesn't matter who it is when the world turns cold. Somebody's got to ride toward the fire." The engines roared to life outside, their thunder echoing through the parking lot. The sound made Sarah smile through her tears. She whispered softly, "My angels on wheels." 2 weeks later, Sarah sat on her porch wrapped in a blanket. The morning sun painting her face with warmth she hadn't felt in months. Her hair was thinner, her hands weaker, but her smile was brighter. The treatments had started working. The doctors called it a strong response. She called it a miracle on 2 wheels. Every morning, she looked out toward the highway, hoping to see that familiar glint of chrome again. But the angels never rode for recognition. They just appeared where they were needed, like thunder that came before the rain one afternoon. Her son came running out with the mail. "Mom, there's something for you." He handed her a small envelope and no return address. Just a biker club patch drawn in red ink. Inside was a photograph. It was her, sitting in that hospital chair, smiling weakly as the nurse started her IV, and behind her, in the doorway, were the bikers. Watching quietly on the back, a message was written in bold, rough handwriting. "You don't fight alone, keep riding. Sarah, your road family." Tears filled her eyes as she traced the words with her fingers. She whispered to herself. They remembered. From that day on, Sarah didn't just fight, and she lived. She began volunteering at the same clinic, helping patients who faced the same struggles she once did, when someone couldn't afford a meal or a ride. She found a way when someone was scared. She sat beside them, and every once in a while, when the air turned still and the horizon shimmered with heat, she'd hear it, the low rumble of engines in the distance. She'd smile, whispering, "The angels are still out there, because sometimes heroes don't wear scrubs or suits. Sometimes they ride in with dust on their boots and fire in their hearts. Not to save the world, but to remind it what kindness still looks like." If this story touched your heart, share it, because kindness doesn't always wear a smile. And heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they walk in covered in dust, carrying stories that could change your heart forever.